Make sure we're good here. All right. I think we're good. Yeah, I just wanted to jump on here and live stream got cut short a little bit yesterday, so but it went well, so wanted to get back on here and talk some stuff with you guys and you know take any more questions and talk some got some recruiting stuff that's happened and some recruiting stuff still coming up, so yeah, I just wanted to get on here and chat about it with you guys for a little bit. Trying to pull up the chat here. One second. Still trying to learn all this new OBS and streaming and stuff like that. So just bear with me for 1 second. But yeah, the Tavion Wallace news yesterday wasn't quite ideal. That's mainly what we talked about yesterday. But I wanted to make this one a little bit more of like a positive note. Um, yeah, I wanted to make this one a little bit more of a to be on more of a positive note than yesterday. It wasn't ideal. And, we can talk about that, especially if you guys have questions or anything you want to say about it. I'll definitely talk with you about it. But you know, got some stuff still coming up. And obviously, I'm not going to let that one thing discredit the fact that Florida State's actually been recruiting at a very high level lately. Um, we got in the last 2 weeks or so, we've got Kevin Wynn, C.J. Wiley, Myron Charles, all big targets. There's Zay Thomas is actually one I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you guys saw his commitment. That was actually pretty sweet. He did it at the Seminole Hard Rock there in Miami, and thought it was a good troll for for Miami fans to have to look out and see Florida State's colors and logo being shown on the hotel there. So definitely cool. Um, Obviously, they got like I said, Kevin Wynn, C.J. Wiley was a surprise one. That was a good one. Um, yeah, so I don't if you guys have any questions about some of those kids or anything like that. As far as what's next, I think we will be getting a commitment tomorrow. 4-star offensive lineman Peyton Joseph. I think will be committing to the good guys. I definitely I said that about Tavion, but we'll see. I think that was the offensive lineman that was committed to Florida for a while, but just kept just kept coming back on campus at Florida State, and they were able to get him to decommit, and I think the next day he got predictions in to flip to Florida State. So I think Memphis is at this point the main competition there, and I feel pretty confident that we can beat Memphis, especially on the offensive line. Alex Atkins is obviously probably one of our best recruiters. Him and Pat Surtain. So yeah, I think we get back on track tomorrow and keep this string of July commitments coming. I believe Dalen McCutcheon announces on July 13th. 4-star wide receiver out of Texas. I definitely think Florida State is in a good spot for him. I think USC is probably the main competition there. But I definitely think we can pull that one off. And I've seen a lot of people say that McCutcheon is actually one of the better receivers in the entire class. Like he's pretty underrated, and I tend to agree with that. I wouldn't say he's like the best wide receiver in his class or nothing like that, but I definitely could see the argument to be made that he's underrated, and definitely be a good get for Florida State. Obviously, kind of reestablishing that Texas pipeline. Yeah, he's McCutcheon. He's 5'11", 5'11", 175, and out of was it Saxe, Texas, Lucas, Texas. So yeah, 5'11", 175. He's really fast and not the tallest receiver, but can use his length for sure. I think that'd be that's been one of Florida State's main targets at receiver. We've heard that name a lot throughout this cycle, and I think they even have a crystal ball in for him. Like I said, USC is going to be tough there. I've seen some people say that his dad played there, but I don't think that's actually true. Just to add in some potential concerns there. Joseph has to commit to us because of yeah, there's definitely some connections there. Like you said with Ferguson, and I believe he was even posting some stuff on his Instagram earlier about Jeremiah Byers being his twin or something like that. So, definitely that's definitely a good sign. I do think he commits to Florida State tomorrow. I'm trying to actually see what time that is. Hopefully, we won't have to sit through another 20 minutes of listening to all these people ramble. I don't know about you guys, but I don't really, I wish they had a better system to stream that kind of stuff. I know the 247 YouTube channel um, often goes live for bigger commitments, but watching, hunting down Instagram live streams, and they're just so bad too. It makes it hard to keep up with. I don't see nothing about a time, but he's definitely announcing tomorrow. And that's going to be a good get. Add to a really, really good offensive line haul for Florida State here. Um, obviously we already have Solomon Thomas committed, 5-star offensive lineman. Josh Petty. People insist that Josh Petty is a battle, and I can't bring myself to buy that. Maybe I'm still being a little too optimistic. I don't see how Florida State loses that one. His sister is at Florida State, and his sister's at Florida State, and he even said like he got emotional talking about it. His sister being with him through the whole recruiting process, and he definitely said that she's put on her recruiting hat to try to get him to go to Florida State. Main competition there, I think his top three finished out with Florida State, Ohio State, and Georgia Tech. Uh, and I can't see, I can't see that kid going to Ohio. So I think the sister in that recruitment is actually helping us a lot. And then just the connections he has with Alex Atkins and everything else. So, 5-star Solomon Thomas, 5-star Josh Petty. Those are the number one and number two interior offensive linemen. You still want some help at tackle for sure. Lamont Rogers is kind of a name I hear. But as of right now, he looks to be going elsewhere. But, adding Peyton Joseph, a top 200 kid. Top 200 kid. And again, flipping him, I'm saying flip, he decommitted technically, and that was a while back, but getting him away from Florida is always a good thing, just to help spurn them guys. And like I said, luckily they got hurt yesterday, right along with us too. So you can't be too mad about that. But yeah, I think Florida State adds another one to a really, really good offensive line haul, and I still wouldn't be surprised if they add more. So Lamont Rogers is still possible. Max Buchanan, I will say, that's another one I wanted to talk about. He ended up moving his commitment up real real fast. I think he was supposed to commit in August, like middle to towards the end of August, and he ended up committing early after a Miami visit, and chose Miami. That definitely reads like a bag drop at the last minute for sure. I think that was one guy that Florida State was really targeting, and I think he'll be very good. I think he's pretty underrated. His big center, something about those big centers with mullets and everything. They just scream All American. I think he'll actually be very very good, and I would like to see Florida State hopefully circle back on him and get him away from Miami. From what I can tell, that is actually that's a pretty good possibility. I know everybody's a little high on Miami right now, and this is definitely going to sound like hater talk and all that, but I just I can't see Miami winning more than like 8 games, maybe 9 if they get lucky. But they have a couple hard games on their schedule. I don't think that they'll beat Florida State. Um, Call me a homer, call me whatever you want. But I don't see Mike Norvell losing to Mario on the field, and they had a rough. They started hot last year like they tend to do. They did the same thing in 2022. They started off really well and got everybody all hyped up and fell apart. I think they'll do the same thing this year, maybe even worse, because Cam Ward is more turnover prone than Tyler Van Dyke was, and that turned into a nightmare. So, depending on how it goes, I could definitely see them having a rough season, and that recruiting class could start to fall apart a little bit. Miami's always going to recruit well, but I'm just saying like those head to head battles that they would have with Florida State. I think Florida State will have a better season. So if they don't move on from Max, I think that they will circle back there, and I wouldn't put it. I wouldn't mark it as impossible to flip him, especially because, like I said, he he had his commitment date set for like middle to late August, I believe, and then moved it up really fast out of nowhere. So I think that's easy to see what happened there. Miami put on the pressure, and that's fine. That happens, and they definitely were involved. I just I don't know that's like the firmest commitment in the world. Um, yeah, I agree. I think our defense is going to be really really good, and I think a guy like Cam Ward is who's I want to say like one of the top quarterbacks in the nation as far as turnovers and sack rate. So he definitely, he's good. I will say that. I just, and I think had he been paired with somebody who could have done better for him, I think he actually could be very good. But just Mario Cristobal has tend to ruin quarterbacks, and I don't think that changes. Um, so yeah, I think yeah, you're right there. The perception of Mario Cristobal being like an offensive line guy, and that's what he played for them. So I get it, but yeah, I think it's a little bit like overplayed, and I think that definitely because they recruit well, they recruit offensive line pretty well. Also, I think uh, the Maui Goa kid, things like that. So they're gonna have decent offensive line recruiting, probably always as long as Mario's there, but you know, so will we, because I think everybody knows kind of what Alex Atkins is about, and everybody sees that development. Um, Solomon, like I said, Solomon Thomas even said that I've seen what they can do in the portal. I've seen what they do with lower ranked guys. Get me a 5-star in there, and then let's see what happens. And I'd say Solomon Thomas is probably see some people say day one starter. I don't think that's quite true, just because you got to get in there and learn the system and things like that. But I think he's going to be an early contributor, early impact kind of guy, and yeah, I think he can definitely make an impact early and be like I said. It's been 8 years since Florida State pulled in a 5-star offensive lineman, and they're looking like they're going to get 2 this cycle if things finish out well. So definitely, despite the couple linebacker issues we've had this week, I think recruiting in general is still trending in a very good direction, and there's still hope. There's still hope for linebacker position, but we'll see. But yeah, I just wanted to. Sorry, one second. See you, man. Have a good one. I've seen some people too, talk like I think some people got kind of upset about what I was saying in the video yesterday. Um, and I'm not like melting down or nothing. It's just I think linebacker position, you need to recruit that better. Just across the board, I don't really think that's negotiable. But like I said yesterday, to his credit, Randy is a very good developer, very good on-field coach, and just some. You can be going in the right direction and still have things that got to get better. That's really all I was trying to say. And I think most would agree with that. Like you don't want to keep missing on 4 and 5 star linebackers. So if you could start adding those guys to your class and getting that development in, then you're really onto something. I did see that the EA Sports video game come out, and they were talking about the build your dynasty thing, and the recruiting is actually going to be super in depth. It looks like there's going to be like NIL, and you can schedule visits and all kinds of stuff like that. That's going to be pretty crazy. It looks like it's going to be fun. I didn't realize until yesterday that you got to have a next gen console to play that. So that's something I got to go figure out here soon. But yeah, that looks like it's gonna be really fun. I think Florida State kind of got screwed there in the ratings a little bit. I think their offense is a little underplayed. You got a top 11 defense or tied for top 10 defense or whatever it is. So can't be too mad there, but that it's definitely gonna be interesting to see how that game is. I'm pretty excited about it. But yeah, so I think, like I said, Florida State has 4 star offensive lineman Peyton Joseph committing tomorrow, and then I believe Dalen McCutcheon is the 12th or 13th. 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 Down to Florida State, USC, Texas, Ohio State, and SMU, I think. Yeah, SMU. I definitely think that one is going to be too Florida State. I think the main competition is USC. Um, everybody kind of knows they're really good on offense, but you know, not great on defense. Um, but Lincoln Riley's a good recruiter, and always going to bring in quarterbacks and stuff like that. I think especially with I believe he had like a connection there to a kid that was committed there, and he ended up going elsewhere. So I really think that's a pretty safe one for Florida State. Obviously, still going to be a battle. He is a Texas kid, so the in-state schools aren't going to stop recruiting him, especially SMU. Texas is probably going to fill up, um, so I don't anticipate having to battle them too much. Um, here's another one I want to talk about. 5 star wide receiver Khalid Lockett. Talking about, speaking of Texas receivers, that's going to be an interesting one. Everybody's kind of counting Florida State out, and I don't think that's quite fair. I think, obviously he's from Texas. Texas A&M and Texas are in his top 4, and it's definitely going to be a tough pool. But Texas has crystal ball predictions in for Decorian Moore, who's the #1 wide receiver in the country, and 5 star receiver Jamie French. So, I can't find myself to believe that Texas is going to land 3 5 star wide receivers, especially because their room from last cycles are already just full. They're loaded at wide receiver. So I don't know that Khalid will want to end up going and being the 3rd receiver in that group. Alabama's in there too. They've kind of snuck up in that one a little bit, but I think they're also going to get Caleb Cunningham. And what's that one kid? Meadows, 2 5 star wide receivers. So, I think I think that is one thing that Florida State will have going for them. And if you'd asked me a month ago if Khalid, I would have said if he was leaving the state of Texas, then he's a Florida State lock. That was kind of before he took the Alabama visit and got Alabama involved there. Not that's still going to be a battle for sure. But if all the cards fall kind of like that, I think Florida State will have a pretty good chip to play there with saying that you could come be wide receiver 1 in our class, and he definitely would be. He definitely would be. So yeah, I think staying on receivers a little bit, Vernell Brown. I think that's also one that Florida State's not quite getting enough credit for. His dad, he's like a Florida legacy, and I think he even has all predictions to Florida right now. But I don't know that I buy that. Um, like I said, there is the connection there, and it's hard to pull a legacy kid like that. But I think Florida State is definitely in the mix there. They got him on campus for that big June 21st weekend a couple weeks back. So, and he was there. Tramel Jones shutting his recruitment down. I think that's a pretty big one too, because Tramel Jones is Vernell Brown's 7-on-7 quarterback. So I think that could be a big one, a big deal in that recruitment as well. They were teammates in the cooking competition, I'm pretty sure. Um, so that's at least if it doesn't hurt, right? Like it definitely can help. I don't think that's going to be like a deciding factor or anything. I don't think they're a package deal. Those typically never work out that way. But I do think Forsyth is firmly in the mix for Vernell. He commits, I want to say sometime in August or maybe late July. So, a couple of different things could happen there, right? Like, I wouldn't be too surprised to see him commit to Florida State initially. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I'd say it's probably more likely that he will commit to Florida. Um, but I think they are going to have, like we talked about Miami not winning, 9 games or more. But I think Florida's going to win, I have a hard time finding 5 wins on Florida's schedule. I really do. So, it gets interesting, right? Because if they have another bad season, like I think they're going to, then Billy Napier's on the hot seat. It's just a matter of if it's actually enough for them to fire him this year, or if they give him until 2025 that season. So because we've seen like the new coach smell, right? Like the new coach hype. I think in a way, if Florida fires Napier, it could hurt Florida State, right? Like it could give them some more juice, especially depending on who they hire. Um, it could give them some extra juice on the trail and can make it harder. Especially a guy like Vernell Brown, right? Like they suck right now, and they're probably going to suck this year. But a new coach tends to instill more faith that things will get turned around, and unfortunately, Mike Norvell never really got to cash in on that back during COVID and everything else. But we saw it when Napier first got there. Like they had no reason to recruit the way they did, but he's a decent recruiter, and I think had a lot of faith in him, and so I think that's why their Billy Napier's first class there was really really good, and we see them struggling now. So depending on who their new coach is, it could hurt Florida State, at least on the recruiting trail, if they make that move soon. and if they go out and they win 4 games and they keep Napier for one more season, I think their recruiting class is just going to fall apart. It did last year. They still ended up recruiting pretty good, but they got LJ McCray. That one hurt. But they went on that run in July or June maybe where they got like 8 commitments like out of nowhere, and most of them I think ended up fizzling off by the end of the season just because people could see that what was going on there wasn't good. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic. That's going to really kind of send a shockwave through the whole state, especially because Florida and Miami play each other. So whoever, we'll get to determine for real who's the real state champs this year, because typically Florida and Miami don't play anymore, but Florida State always plays both. So that'll be an interesting dynamic to see kind of how that all shakes out this year, because again we all get to play each other finally. Florida even ends up playing UCF, which I have a hard time. I think UCF absolutely could beat Florida if it worked out. But it's just going to be one we have to see too. Yeah. So definitely with CJ Wiley already in the fold, there's still a lot to hit on at the wide receiver position, and that's kind of one that people get a little bit freaked out about. I don't think that's quite earned yet. You know, if they do somehow end up missing on Dalen McCutcheon and Vernell does commit to Florida, then I'll be pretty concerned. And that's another thing I wanted to say is like CJ Wiley, right? A lot of people had issues with what he said after he committed to Florida State, which was a big shocker for everybody. He said after the end, like in his interview, he said something, that he would still take his visits, his recruitment is still open, and people hate that, and I get it because it just it leaves the door open for more drama for sure. Um, the one thing I'll say to that is like he only had Georgia reporters at his commitment ceremony. Like everybody was dead convinced that he was going to Georgia. It wasn't even that far of a drive from Tallahassee for Florida State to send people there just in case, and they still didn't. So it doesn't even sound like the staff knew up until maybe a few minutes before. So like that leads people to think like, oh, he's just gonna flip. And I've seen a lot of like the KJ Bolden references and things like that. And I don't think that's quite fair either. Florida State fans got to realize not every recruit is KJ. Not every time we go up against Georgia is it gonna go that way. That that wasn't normal what happened there. So anyway, like all Georgia reporters they're gonna ask CJ Wiley about Georgia. They're gonna say what are you still gonna visit? They're gonna ask questions, things like that. And he's gonna play the game. He's gonna answer, and his recruitment is open. I'm sure of that. Like I'm sure he's listening to other offers and other things. But I think Florida State did a really good job with him on that last visit, and we kind of were hearing that like Florida State's making a push here. Realizing there's been some movement in this recruitment and things like that. I still couldn't bring myself to think that it was going to happen. I remember like when he did finally announce, I was scrambling to try to get a video out about it and all kinds of stuff like that. So it definitely wasn't planned, and I could see like why people took issue with his comments. I think it was posturing and answering UGA reporters more than anything. I'd be willing to bet that he as of right now, I think he sticks. He's even out there recruiting on his social medias for us. So I think he sticks. A lot of the other people think he sticks too. Even some of like Zach Blostein, people give him credit or give him whatever for being a little too pessimistic, and he even seems to think that Wiley sticks. So I do there too. I think a receiver like him, obviously he saw the connection, Keon Coleman and things like that. I think a big bodied wide receiver like him, he knows he could go crazy in this offense, the Mike Novell offense. So yeah, I think between that, Florida State doing what they did on that last visit with him, and probably putting together a little bit more NIL from the battle's end, and I think they were able to get it done. And but I think he's kind of always been one of those recruits that Florida State was always in the mix for. He just kind of ebbs and flows, right? So at one point people thought Florida State was firmly in the mix, and it just kind of always read like Georgia, and Florida State was kind of on the outside looking in. But luckily they did whatever they did, and they were able to get him back. Just got to hold on to him at this point. I did get a couple questions about the Zadrius Rainey Sale commitment or recruitment or whatever you want to call it, but so that was an odd one. I think now we kind of know like it was obvious that kid was never leaving the state of Washington. He had a crystal ball prediction to Florida State before up until like January, and definitely looked like the Noles were going to get him. Then Washington went to the national championship game, and that's obviously going to give them a big boost in recruiting, especially for their in-state kids. And then Kalen DeBoer takes the job at Alabama. I think that kid was committed to Washington for all of like 3 days or something, and then reopened it after Kalen left. So I kind of thought that would be a good time for Florida State to get back in the mix, and they did. They got him on campus, and you know I don't know if I believe this, but I've heard that he committed to the staff in person twice, and so kind of not a great sign there. And even up until like the last day, people kind of thought like Florida State was probably still in a good spot for him, and then it really just didn't go their way. Like I said, I think we know now that kid was just never leaving the state of Washington. That's a big stretch to that's probably the farthest college from Tallahassee, so like in the entire country. So you know, I can't blame him too much there. But just that sucks because that kid was good and he's gonna be good. So you definitely would have liked to see them pull it off, but out of state one like that, those are always tough pulls. So, but yeah, if you guys got any more questions or anything like that, I'll try to answer them at least if I can, or if you just want to say something or voice a frustration or whatever. I think I definitely think this will be a top 10 class for Florida State still. That people think like because we didn't get Tavon Wallace, like, this won't be a good class, and it definitely hurts because that was one of your top defensive recruits, and at a key position like that. So like I get it, but I still think this will be a top 10 class. Unless these issues kind of snowball, but I think I think this will still be a top 10 class. I think it will still be Martin Norvell's best yet. Um, and like I said, I still think they could definitely circle back. He even said, right? He said that he's still going to take visits. I think he'll still take. I think he might have even said multiple visits to Florida State. So, you know, again, I don't necessarily love those because it leaves the door open for more of the same. Like we're really going to have to go through this whole process again, um, especially if we get our hopes up that we will flip him and then it just doesn't happen. But like I said yesterday, that Arkansas staff really should have been fired last year. A lot of people were shocked that they weren't. So I don't think they're going to have a better season. So I can definitely see them getting fired. And he reopened. I cannot see him signing with Arkansas now. Whether Florida State will push enough to try to get back in that one, whether they'll be able to, here, I think he even said like it was just down to Florida State and Arkansas, so it's not like Florida State actually ended up running third or fourth in that one. So Florida State tends to, when they are running second for an initial commitment, they tend to get the kid back, whether it be like a Jalen Brown or a Marvin Jones Jr. Those are through the portal, and we may have to get Tavion back through the portal. That may be how that has to go. But I'm sure they will if everything shakes out right. But yeah, still gonna be a battle there for sure. Some people were asking yesterday, and kind of yesterday was like an instant reaction kind of thing, so I didn't have all my ducks in a row. But like some people were asking like some other options for linebacker, like what they'll do outside of Tavion now. I think TJ Alford is still a possibility. He's committed to Ohio State, so that's going to be a tough pull, of course. Probably you're going to have to up some NIL there probably to get it done, but I do think it's possible. He's a Vero Beach kid, and I could see him wanting to stay home rather than going all the way to Ohio. And it sounds like communication has picked up between him and the staff, so they got him on campus a bunch before, and I do think they were probably running second when he committed to Ohio State. But I think they kind of like their push was made a little too late. But they definitely could get back into that one. Ty Jackson, I think he's a 5-star linebacker on 3, 4-star per 247. Um, he takes an in-season official visit, and I could see them. I think he commits in the fall sometime. I can't remember when. So that one could definitely be one that Florida State gets back in. They got him on campus a few times, like earlier this spring and stuff. So that could be one that Florida State circles back on for sure. I don't think they're out of that one, but I do think, as of right now, it kind of looks like Ty Jackson is trending to Georgia. But again, we'll see. Um, Missing on Wallace State, if they find that they don't think they can pull that one off, they may throw just a crazy NIL bag at one of these other linebackers like TJ Alford or Ty Jackson, and do whatever they can there. Michael Hasty, people aren't gonna like this, but Michael Hasty is another name that's gotten thrown around a lot. I don't think he was a take, and I would hope that he's still not, because that means they feel good everywhere else. But so Michael Hasty is a name that's got tossed around earlier this cycle, and everybody kind of shook it off because again didn't think he was a take, but now he may be, and 3-star linebacker. Um, I know people aren't going to like that, but it is what it is. You got to take what you get. Now, yes, I wish what we got was better. You got to take what you get. I think he's good. I think he's 3-star good. Maybe ends up being like a low 4-star. But he definitely seems like if Florida State were to give him the green light, that he would be a Nole. It's just the linebacker board dwindled down pretty good, and I'm not too sure what else to say there. But yeah, so Ty Jackson, TJ Alford, Michael Hasty. Hope that you can make a move for one of these flips again later down the road. And I will say this, right. So you go out there and you have another 10, 11 plus win season, especially with Mike Norvell being locked down now at Florida State, and if other schools kind of underperform, I think you could see some late drama, maybe a little bit more than you did last cycle from Florida State. Because Florida State, like last cycle, their late pushes really didn't work out, right? Like Armando Blunt flip, KJ Bolden flip. You didn't get Jeremiah Smith. You didn't get LJ McCray. You didn't get Artavius Blunt from Miami. You didn't get a JoJo Trader. So like all the late pushes you were looking to make didn't quite work out last cycle. But I think you probably sit in a better spot to do something like that this year. Your connections were made a little bit earlier, and again, I think the other two in-state schools are going to have a pretty rough time. So all that you could have all that going for you, and who knows. Another one I wanted to kind of mention was Dallas Wilson, 5-star receiver. We've done a video on him too here on the channel. 5-star wide receiver committed to Oregon. He's also a Florida kid, and he has his official visit scheduled to FSU the last weekend before signing day, and that's typically when you want to go and visit the school you're currently committed to. But for one, who knows if he'll even still be committed to them by that time, late December, or early December. But yeah, he's coming back for that Florida State game. Florida is one of the schools that are trying to flip him. Miami's also involved there as well. I think if he doesn't go to Oregon, he ends up staying with one of those three schools: Florida State, Miami. Miami has confidence there. Florida has some confidence there, but I think that's kind of dwindling down. In Florida State, I think Khalid Lockett is their number one target. I think Vernell Brown is probably their number one that they would like to try to get. I think if they have confidence on Vernell or Khalid at that point, or if hopefully maybe one of them are committed by that time, they may not push as hard for Dallas Wilson. But if they're still needing to fill out a spot and kind of get that top dog at receiver there, I could see them make a push for him that last final weekend, November 27th or something like that, late November, whenever we play Florida. That's always a good chance to take to woo over a recruit, right? Especially one that's considering Florida. Like come watch us beat these guys, put an end to their miserable season. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Like, you think Florida wins more than 5 games? I'd be curious to see what you guys might think. You think Gators win more than 5 games? Yeah, their schedule is brutal, especially the back half of it. Um, they got Georgia. I mean, they play Georgia, Texas, Miami, Florida State. Like, they have. There's only like 3 easy wins I see, and I don't even know if I'd quite go that far. Play Mississippi State, and I don't even know that Mississippi State is an easy win for them. I know I'm kind of bouncing around a lot. I didn't necessarily have like a ton of outline or formatting for this, but I just wanted to get on here and kind of ramble, I guess. Said the one we were trying to do yesterday got cut a little short. Just wanted to get back on here. But yeah, I was actually considering taking those Vegas lines. Florida under, Miami under, and Florida State over. Just because at least last time I saw it was 5.5 for Florida, and that would insinuate that they have to win 6 to hit the over. I can't see it. I can't see it. Now Florida State's win total was more interesting to me because 9 wins is like right there. 9.5 especially. That game at Notre Dame is going to be tough. And I even think that Georgia Tech game in the beginning of the season, I think that one's going to be tougher than most people give it credit for. Now, I'm not saying that Florida State loses to Georgia Tech. I'm just saying like that's not going to be just an easy blowout win for Florida State. I don't think. I still think they can win by multiple scores because I think we are more talented than them. I think that's always going to show through. Better coaching. But, I think Georgia Tech showed that they were actually a decent team last year. Obviously, they beat Miami because Mario doesn't know how to take a knee. And, nope, and I don't plan on forgetting that anytime soon. That's always going to be a top moment. But, I think, even in that game, to keep it as close as they did, right, like, and then to capitalize on the mistakes from Miami, like, that proved that they were a decent team. They were decently coached. So I think that'll be a tough win, but I do think Florida State wins. I think I think does Florida State go to Miami this year? I think that one is going to be played in Coral Gables, which is like Doak South. Like we own that place, so even if it's not a home game, but you get the Gators at home. You get like I said, you got to go to Notre Dame. That's going to be a tough one. You got to go to SMU, which I think like. I'm not saying that game is like an upset thing either, but like that game, they have a good offense. So I think that game could actually be very, very fun. Welcome them in with the new conference right before we get out. Speaking of, that was another thing. I don't have too much new information as far as the conference realignment thing. Other than I think Florida State is absolutely getting out, and I actually think that deadline comes probably before. I'd say that announcement officially comes probably within the next 2 months. I think the deadline is like August 15th or something like that, maybe. So I think Florida State announces that they're officially getting out. See some people say that they prefer Big Ten or SEC. So let me know what you think. If you prefer the SEC or Big Ten, and tell me why, because I think there's decent arguments made for both, right? Like the Big Ten is probably going to eventually have more money for you. I think their contracts are actually a little bit bigger now, but like for like game travel purposes, the Big Ten is going to suck a little bit because you can't just go to Alabama. You got to go Michigan or Wisconsin or whatever. Which I think those games would be super fun, right? Like Florida State going to the Shoe, right? And or a whiteout game at Penn State. Like Florida State at Penn State for a whiteout game. That would be sick. Michigan fans coming to Doak. That would be sick too. So like, I could see that, but like, it's gonna make travel difficult and expensive and all that stuff. So I can see why people don't like that either. And the SEC still is a bigger brand. I think you could have more sustained success in the Big Ten, because the SEC still runs through Georgia and Alabama right now. Those are going to be tough games to play every year. Think like I think even Wisconsin, right? Like if they could get good again, especially like that would be a huge game. I think they were ranked as like one of the top 5 hardest places to play. There in Wisconsin, so I think I could see merit to either or. The Big Ten is definitely trying to get a footprint in the South, and I don't know that the SEC wants to let that happen. Some people are asking me like, does Florida State and Clemson go to the same place? I think they could. I definitely think they could. I think they're both desired by both conferences, the SEC or the Big Ten. I just it's so weird because their lawsuit came later, and they were waiting for us to be the bad guys to get everything started, and I even seen Feinbaum's comments about Florida State's not worth what they think they are and whatever. Like, what does Florida State bring to the table? A lot. And I think anybody who tries to disagree with that is out of their mind. And I think he's even like contradicted himself on air multiple times, Paul Feinbaum, about this whole thing, specifically Florida State. So I think they just decide when and when not to posture and say whatever they got to say, and I get it. But like Florida State, I think is highly desired by both conferences. Maybe one more than the other. The SEC already has Florida, so if they were to add Florida State in, it would just kind of help build on to their Florida brand, their South brand. But it's Florida State's a huge brand that the Big Ten, could come in and take away. And they have Florida State as one of the fastest growing fan bases. So I could definitely see that. I could see that the Big Ten wants to pay and get Florida State. The lawsuit thing is really throwing me for a war right now. I'm not even I haven't done too much videos on that. Just because I truly, like, total disclosure, I don't understand a lot of it. But I know what I do know is that Florida State's going to have to pay something to get out. This whole lawsuit is just kind of determining how much, if it is the whole grant of rights buyout or what the deal is with that, or if the Big Ten or the SEC is going to be willing to kind of help Florida State with some of that cost. Sounds like they have a lot of that kind of already on tap. Just kind of got to figure it out and get everything finalized. So yeah, like I said, I think the announcement for that could actually come in the next 2 months. I think there is that deadline there in August, and probably be sitting. Best case scenario, they start the 2025 season with a different patch on their jerseys, and to be honest, I don't really care which one it is. Like, I go back and forth on which one I would prefer. But either one is better than the ACC right now. I think if the Big Ten gives you a way out and gives you the money to stay competitive, then you do take it. I think if the SEC does, you take that. And I think if they want to get into a little bit of a bidding war with it, then you let them. You sit back and you let them. I think Florida State is in a spot to where, like, yeah, they'll have to pay for some of whatever happens with the ACC, but at that point, I think Florida State sits in a good spot to kind of name their price and name what they need to leave. Because college football is absolutely going to the Big Two. It's going to be the Big Ten and the SEC. like the Big 12 still staying around for a little bit, and I get that. The Pac-12 is done. But yeah, so it's definitely going to a Power Two. Just is the way it is, and I don't even hate it. It's just more of college football turning like the NFL, the AOC and the NFC. So you're going to have more of that. I think college football is going to be just semi-pro sports rather than dealing with the NCAA too much more. So yeah, yeah, I don't really know what else to say on that one other than I hope everything lines out where they can make the announcement and it actually happens and they get out soon. I think either one is a significant upgrade. And I will say that too. Like this is one thing on the recruiting front, on the coaching staff front, and everything that kind of people. I think people don't always consider when they're making their complaints because like Florida State is recruiting against the SEC badge right now. Like that ACC badge being on Florida State's jerseys is hurting the staff on the recruiting trail. Yeah, we've won the state. we've beaten SEC schools. We beat LSU back to back. We beat Florida back to back. We've done those things, and I get it, and that's right. And I think that's why we've seen the uptick in recruiting. We've seen the uptick in obviously the Battles End got a ton of money for the snub, and that snub in a lot of ways was probably one of the better things that could have happened to Florida State. But it did sting. But like. That just proved that you had to get out, and even recruits saw that. You saw what some of the recruits said about it, and they want to compete for championships, and you just kind of made that clear that the ACC is a so-called Power 5 conference. So like, kids see that. Recruits are seeing that, and I think the staff does a pretty good job of going around that, but. I think if Florida State had Big Ten money, SEC money, one of those logos, then you instantly see improvement in recruiting. Same staff, same NIL, same all that. But I think I think you see just a significant improvement actually just by being part of a better conference, one that actually is competitive. So, like I don't think people consider that enough. And with the money, just with the revenue gap between, Florida makes $44 million a year more than Florida State does. And you can't tell me that's fair. Like Florida State has won their conference, won 13 games, went 10-3 in 2022. Made significant improvements over the years. They've tweaked the staff a little bit, maybe not enough, but they tweaked it a little bit. They've done it right. You've seen a significant improvement in recruiting. You still need to see more, but the fact that they've been able to do that, the fact that they've done the portal the way they have, they've gotten better in recruiting. They've won. Their on-field product has become one of the best. Doing all that with a $40-50 million gap every year between the like you can't have the same expectations for Florida State that you do for Florida and give them $50 million less every year. Now we do that as fans, and the conference is doing that too. Like you have to do the same thing. You've got to be competitive, and they've done it despite that gap there. So I think it just further proves that if you could give Florida State that same level of resources, actually put them on an even playing field with those other schools, then Mike Norvell and Florida State could very well put college football in a chokehold if given the right set of circumstances. So I definitely think there's a lot to unpack with that one. But yes, I think the conference, Florida State's got a lot going on. they're trying to get out of the ACC. They're trying to figure out where their next landing spot is. They're trying to figure out the legal battles in both North Carolina and the state of Florida. They got the sanctions thing, which I haven't heard actually too much about, but them sanctions need to be overturned. So they're taking the battle with that. Um, recruiting is going crazy right now. So there's a lot going on. Um, yeah, I just I think I do think. Let's see if I can actually pull up when that deadline is. Yeah, so the deadline last year was August 15th, so maybe I would assume it's probably right around the same time this year. So yeah, I mean, I think August 15th, and in the weeks leading up to that, we're probably going to see more and more stuff. I think we've already, there's been a lot of people dropping like little uh, subliminal hints and things like that on there, being like all the cryptic tweets and everything. I definitely think Florida State's getting out, and I think it happens sooner rather than later for sure. I think right now it's just a waiting game, really, and that sucks. I get that sucks, but yeah, I think thankfully, it'll be worth it when it's all said and done. I think Florida State will move on to bigger and better things. But yeah, I don't know if you guys had anything else you wanted to kind of ask or talk about, but I kind of covered a lot of the things I was going to say here. Talk about receivers and things like that. Definitely, if you guys got any questions or anything like that, definitely drop them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm trying to. I don't know how good the audio is or anything like that. This one's going to be a little bit rough because I'm just now kind of learning how to stream like this. Yesterday I just went straight through YouTube. Now I'm trying to do OBS and see how that all works, and so I can have like the little banner down there at the bottom. Um, so yeah, sorry if it's a little bit rocky. This one's definitely they're gonna get better. I'm trying to do all these things to improve and improve the production value and all that good stuff. But yeah, so y'all just have to bear with me for a little bit. We'll get better as we go. I'm definitely gonna be doing more of these. A lot of good stuff talking about yesterday, and I said, well, I think Florida State gets good news tomorrow and kind of gets back on a good note. Definitely needed after the last couple of days. It was going so good. That's what I really hate. Like, I'm not going to keep going down the rabbit hole there, but we were on such a hot streak. There was like 3 or 4 days where we were getting a commitment every day, and yeah, sucks to have to see that end. But got a lot of good guys. Kevin Wynn, that was that was a good win for Florida State to get him over Georgia. Myron Charles, that was one was looking a little sketchy there. Texas definitely tried to drop a bag at the last minute. Um, Florida State was able to win out in that one. I think it sounded like he committed to the staff and was actually going to announce later. Myron Charles was actually going to announce that a little later, and uh, once the Texas mob dropped the crystal ball for him, he actually said like, "No, I'm going to announce sooner now." So that was fun, and like I said, so we got to give Florida State credit, and pulling off things like that, that's a good sign. Like you want a kid to be that null blooded, right? Like to where he sees a crystal ball prediction from somewhere else, he takes offense to that. So I liked that. That was definitely a one I didn't expect to see happen when it did. Um, CJ, we talked about CJ Wiley being a shocker. That one was definitely a shocker. Thoughts on another edge and offensive tackle other than Josh? Another edge. They were definitely in the mix with Zion Grady, and a lot of people, got mad about that when he committed to Ohio State. I mean, Zion Grady had a different leader every couple weeks, right? Like it was Alabama, it was Georgia, it was Florida State, it was Miami. Then I kind of always felt like whoever got the last visit there was going to be the school that got him, at least initially. He's very impressionable. No knock on the kid or anything like that. I probably would have a hard time myself going to Alabama and Ohio State, Georgia, Oregon, places like that, and not getting, on some kind of visit high. So, I to that point though, I think Florida State, if they could keep getting him back on campus, they may be able to sway a flip there. Where I'm also at edge, like I'm hearing some stuff about Jared Smith. Seems like Florida State's still pretty involved in that one. I think Georgia, South Carolina is probably the top competition there. Maybe Tennessee, but a lot of times when I'm talking about recruits like this, I try to go through the process of elimination in a lot of ways, right? Like Tennessee just got Marion Dye, and he's one of the top edges in the class. Georgia just got Chris Balls for Justice Terry and Isaiah Gibson. I think Isaiah Gibson actually committed already. So, Jared Smith, he probably, not going to Tennessee, probably not going to Georgia to join, a really, really long list of edges there. To that point, like Florida State, you could say that Florida State's got the number one edge in Javion Hilson, who shut it down and all that. So, he may not want to come be defensive end 2 at Florida State either. But, I think they're definitely in contact there. At this point, because of what I just said, I think that it's like a Florida State South Carolina battle. And South Carolina, you could say like we should be able to beat them, and I think we could. But South Carolina is one of those weird teams that kind of always pulls out a random 5-star recruitment like out of nowhere. They got that I think Nicholas Harbor kid and all that. So Florida State's battling there. I think they could if they could keep getting him back on campus, they could kind of keep chipping away. They may be able to get him. It was the edge is kind of weird because you also saw Nicholas Clayton, right? Like a 3-star edge, a good developmental piece, like a good project kind of player. Really good size, could be very, very good, especially, John Blue just develops defensive ends like nobody else. But I think they told him, he wasn't a take because they felt good on Zion Grady and Jared Smith and other guys. And, some people took issue with that. I'm not going to make my decision on that one. Whether that's an issue or not until we kind of know what's happened. They could circle back there. He committed to Wisconsin, so if you really made a push, I like to think you could flip him from Wisconsin. It's just already having the number one edge, and that wasn't Javion Hilson wasn't cheap, right? Number one edge, fringe 5-star kind of player. You had to keep him away from Texas and Alabama and Florida. You spent some NIL money there. So just a matter of if they feel like it's necessary to kind of prioritize another top guy. Now, offensive tackle, that tackle is weird because Florida State needs tackles, and like I said, they do got Josh Petty coming in. Probably, at least it looks like they're going to get him coming in. Outside of that, Lamont Rogers, it's another one I could see. Yeah, I kind of tend to flip flop on who I think is leading in that recruitment. I think Auburn's pretty involved there. And again, our offensive line haul is going to be really, really good. So, but it may be our offensive line haul is going to be interior heavy for sure. Now, like I said, we need tackles, but just depends on how it works out. I think Lamont Rogers is still one that they could get. They're very, very involved in that one for sure. I think he was on campus, I believe, for that June 21st weekend also. So definitely like he's a big guy. What is it, 6 foot? I'm trying to find it because Lamont Rogers is huge. I want to say 6'7", 6'8". So 247 has him at 6'6.5", 311, and I think that's a little bit small. Like I think he's more like 6'7", 6'8". So yeah, and that would definitely be a one that plays for sure. Again, but that's another kid from Texas. Texas is involved there. Texas A&M is involved there. Oklahoma. Um, so yeah, that's not impossible, but that's going to be a tough pull. Ty Haywood. I know everybody's kind of saying like he's Alabama bound. He's got predictions to Alabama and all that stuff. I don't think he actually is committed yet. Yeah, so he's not committed to Alabama, but I do think he's going to be an Alabama guy. But Florida State, I think Florida State's in his top 2, right? Like Florida State's probably second right now, but you never know. Everybody thought he was going to Oklahoma a few months back, and that's kind of changed now. So again, recruiting is always fluid. Nothing. Florida State fans know that. Florida State fans know that nothing is concrete in July, right? So like there could definitely be some movements made. The boards are always going to kind of change. So I think it's just a matter of seeing how everything kind of works out. Like the season, because a lot of the teams that Florida State is battling, like they're not all gonna have the best season, right? They're not all gonna have terrible seasons either. So, like, I think once the games get played, some of this will become a little bit more clear. That's every year, but I think specifically for this year with the guys that Florida State is recruiting. So yeah, the tackle is one that I do think is going to be a little light again. Unfortunately, they'll probably just portal in some guys. I know maybe not everybody likes that answer, but I think they'll be fine, right? Like I think Alex Atkins is always going to feel a pretty decent offensive line. And like here's another one. Like I'll say, like what I would like to see this year from the offensive line is like you've recruited top guys. They're not 5 stars necessarily, but like Julian Armella was one of the top recruits. Lucas Simmons was a big win, especially getting him over Florida and things like that. So like you would like to finally see those guys kind of get developed and take another step. So you maybe can stop targeting the portal so much. But yeah, until that kind of happens, tackle, I don't have a great answer for you, unfortunately. Maybe we could touch on running back. I'm sure some of you guys are a little curious about running backs right now. Florida State obviously took 2 with Cam Davis and Mekhi Danzy last year. I don't know that Mekhi Danzy will ever see like a true running back kind of role. Probably more like a scat back. We'll probably use him similar to how they use like Toa Philly. Like I would say like Cam Davis and Mekhi Danzy is going to be like Trey Benson and Toa Philly was. Because Danzy is fast, like Olympic level speed, and coming out of high school, that's pretty crazy. Excuse me. Now, it kind of looks like they're going to take 2 this year. Like I think they lead for Usmani Chroma. Obviously battling Georgia and Auburn there. It looks like more Auburn Florida State battle. Luckily, now here's everybody kind of like rolls their eyes at like an Auburn Florida State battle because just I think especially with the Keldrick Fall situation, the difference there is if Chroma was an Alabama kid, then I would be like, I would honestly stop wasting time on him. But he's from Georgia, and I don't think that he's going to Georgia. So I think Florida State's definitely in the mix there. I think they lead. And I would probably even pencil him in this class right now. Same goes for Byron Lewis. Think I think it's not quite fair that he slid in the rankings. He's now a 3-star on the 247 rankings. Maybe not the composite, but I think on like the regular 247 rankings, he slid to a 3-star. That's something that's probably got to do with the fact that he looks like a Florida State lean right now. And for whatever reason, Florida State leans always tend to slide in the rankings, and for the life of me, I can't figure out why. But I I think they leave for him too. He was also just on campus. I think he's actually supposed to announce soon. Byron Lewis, Chroma will be in season. I think September is when they said he's announcing. So but I think Florida State sits in a good spot for both of those guys. And honestly, like if I had to make a call now, I would definitely say that both of those guys are gonna be in Florida State's class. But a lot of time there, and I do think Byron has a tendency to. I think he kind of wants to be the top running back in the class. So that could go elsewhere, especially if Florida State ends up. I think Chroma is the priority, but I don't think it's like a huge difference. So I definitely like them for both right now. Miami is obviously really involved with Byron Lewis, and if they could make a push and convince him to go there. But I think as of right now, he was also on campus not too long ago, so I think both of them, in my opinion, both of them look to be Noles right now. Yeah, I think he does. Unless communication kind of has a thing where like he knows that they're kind of waiting on Chroma first. It's weird because I have no idea how, like, if they're. I'm sure they would like to, but do they really make it a priority? Are they kind of going all in on making sure they get Chroma first? Because that could be a tricky way to play that one also. So but he does have a commitment timeline a little bit earlier than Usmani does. So I could see definitely him jumping on board first. It just. Like I say, you're battling Miami there. Really, more than anything, you're battling like your own roster. So, like, again, you just got Cam Davis, I think he's going to be very, very good. And then Byron and Usman, and so there's a lot of numbers there to kind of figure out. You definitely don't want to, you don't want all these guys you've recruited to transfer out. So yeah. Coming over by the middle, so go into August. Oof, that's a tough one. Because I think like Khalid Lockett announces on the 7th of August. I want to say. August 7th for Khalid. So if they've really made inroads by that time with a guy like him, that'd be a big one. See, I think they're sitting at currently have 9 or is it 8 maybe? So they have 9 commits: Solomon Thomas, Javion Hilson, Kevin Wynn, Zay Thomas, Myron Charles, C.J. Wiley, Jamel Jones, Chase Lockton, and Ethan Pritchard. So 9. I see Peyton Joseph being one tomorrow. 10. Cutchin. If a lot of their targets keep keep the summer timelines of like late July, August. If they keep their timeline, because a lot of times those get pushed back. So if they keep a lot of those timelines, I could see Florida State up to, 15. Maybe not 15, but I would say at least 13. I think Florida State would probably be sitting at like 13, 14 commits by the end of August, depending on McCutcheon. Petty. Oh yeah, with Petty too. I forget that's August 12th. That's his birthday, I think, is when he said he's announcing. So I think that'll be one. So yeah, McCutcheon, yeah, you're helping me out. Lockett's a tough one, but there's still over a month there to kind of make a move. So I can see it. McCutcheon, Petty. I think Byron Lewis will probably announce before the end of August. So I could definitely see then. Peyton Joseph announcing tomorrow, so I can see at least 4 more by the end of August. Now potentially 5, potentially 6. I definitely, that's all the more reason why yesterday hurt because there was a lot penciled in the last couple of days that has kind of now had to be regrouped. But yeah, I can see I'd say 13 to 15 by the end of August. As long as like I said, those like Josh Petty, as long as he keeps his commitment date around that timeline, and Byron Lewis actually announces by then, things like that. Because I think Florida State will get his initial commitment, unless something really crazy happens in the next couple of weeks. I could see Florida State getting his commitment. Just a matter of if they'll, if he'll still want to stick around after, if they can actually get Chroma on the boat. 13 to 15, yeah. I've got that question a lot too. Like, how many guys, especially with the way they use the portal, like how many recruits are they really trying to take? I think they want to finish out with 20 to 23. I think that's really the number they'd like to be at. And then just use the portal kind of the way they always have. And I think some of these boards, it's going to be interesting because this is, maybe this is like recency bias or whatever, but this feels like this is going to be one of those years where things go a little differently on the recruiting front because, like I said, the boards, the DB board started out and you really had no idea, and I didn't. I knew there was guys out there, but like who is the real. Who's attainable on this board? Who is which one is the top dog? We obviously just got Zay Thomas, and I think that's a good pickup. I think anyway. My point is the DB board has kind of unfolded and changed a little bit. The linebacker board has changed a lot now, especially in the last couple of days. It's changed a ton. Defensive line board is still kind of being put together because I think. They did get Kevin Wynn and Myron Charles, so they want to be careful there. But I do think they're looking to add at least probably one more. I think they want to get one more edge. I say they get one more edge, 2 more linebackers if they can, depending on how depending on what caliber they're having to get. If they're not able to pull in one of the big targets at linebacker, then I'd say they'll probably try to go get 2 development pieces. But if they can get a guy like TJ Alford or flip a Tavion Wallace or whatever, they might just kind of call it a day there and stop spending resources on it. Receiver, nobody had CJ Wiley as a Seminole. And like I said, you're trying to get Vernell Brown, you're trying to get Khalid Lockett, you're trying to possibly make a move with Dallas Wilson. So, and receiver, I think receiver is one where they're going to want to stock up in the high school ranks. So that one, my point of all this is the boards are still going to unfold, and I think they're going to unfold and keep kind of changing until we get into October, November, before we kind of have a really good idea of where everything's going to sit. Because you win a lot of games and you get a Khalid Lockett to say hey, I want in, then you obviously find a way to make room for that. That could make certain guys leave, could make could just build a class with higher numbers than initially expected. So like I said, there's definitely still a lot of things like to happen to unfold. Just more, like I said, more waiting and seeing. Unfortunately, um, like I said, I still think it's going to be a good next couple months on the recruiting front. Obviously, Josh Petty is going to be a big one. Dalen McCutcheon, and I said it kind of before at the beginning of the show. Like Dalen McCutcheon doesn't get the credit as for what he is. He's very very good. I've seen some clips of him recently, even, and I mean that dude he's crazy with it for sure. um, and I think if Florida State can add him, C.J. Wiley, like a receiver group of let's just say like one of Khalid Lockett or Vernell Brown or Dallas Wilson, right? Like that, and then with C.J. Wiley and Dalen McCutcheon, I mean, that's a really really good wide receiver haul. Um, and I saw people were kind of upset that they didn't take a receiver in the spring portal window. That there just wasn't a lot of good names out there that it was because you always got to be careful with the portal because you don't want to bring in a kid that's gonna be an issue in the locker room. You don't want to you don't want to push out some of the guys you got. You brought in a lot of young receivers, like Jalen Brown. So I think I think you like I wanted to see them bring in a portal guy, especially thankfully especially in the spring game. Malik Benson went down with that injury. It looked like that could be a problem. So but luckily it sounds like it wasn't too big of a deal because nothing really come out about him. Destin Hill went down with the injury, but anyway, I think they're gonna want to hit wide receiver pretty heavy in this class, even if it is taking some like lower ranked kids. I think they're at least gonna want to build depth there. C.J. Wiley was kind of like your big bodied wide receiver, and I think you kind of just keep on adding if you can. But yeah, that is a situation I'm waiting because we saw Destin Hill out for spring and summer with ACL. So I like fall camp. I'd love to see him get back out there. That poor kid, man. Destin Hill has not been able to get himself on the football field. Hate it for him, but I think he'll be fine still. Hopefully, because when Destin Hill flashed, he was really really good. Showed a lot of potential, a lot of promise. Sucks that he had to tear his ACL. Sucks that he had to, his first real off season in Tallahassee, and it had to go like that. It sucks for him. I hate that. That's kind of another one. Like somebody was asking me, what is the plan at receiver? I think Malik Benson is going to be very very good for you. I think Hakeem Williams. I think he definitely is poised to take a step this year. The last half of that season last year, Hakeem kind of fell off. Like we saw that glimpse of Hakeem during the I want to say was it Syracuse where he kind of had that little screen where he just showed crazy speed. It was either Syracuse or Boston College, I think, but it showed good speed and definitely showed us a glimpse of why he was a 5-star receiver. But I think the second half of the season he was nursing an injury pretty decent there. But I think that's kind of changed. I think he'll be in much better shape this year, and I think he's poised for a breakout. Yeah, I was too. I thought that. I think, and I still do. I don't think this injury is necessarily going to be like a career-ending thing or anything like that. I think they can just rehab him all off season and hopefully get him back out there in the fall. Yeah, that's it. I don't know that Ranch Hand needs to be fired. Because he's such a good developer, and you cannot underestimate that just because the recruiting isn't there. I get the sentiment, I really really do. But I'll say this time and time again, nobody takes Kalen DeLoach and does gets that level of play out of him other than Randy Shannon. Now, yes, like somebody said yesterday, like you put two linebackers in the draft, like you can't get mad at Randy Shannon, but like yeah, Randy Shannon put two linebackers in the draft, and now he should be able to capitalize on that on the recruiting front. So it's definitely frustrating. I hear you. I think what is probably a more likely scenario is Randy, ends up not getting fired, but like he is more of like an on field coach, and maybe they bring in somebody else to take care of like the recruiting side of that. Um, yeah, I was just going to say like Ernie Sims is probably that guy. I don't think it's a coincidence that you see Ernie Sims like start hanging out, and then they announce that he is on the staff, and so I don't think any of that's a coincidence. I think I was hoping to see that he would help more in the Jalen Wiggins recruitment because they were both in similar scenarios. Jalen Wiggins and Ernie Sims, as far as being Tallahassee kids and wanting to get out. Um, and I thought Florida State was in a good spot for Jalen Wiggins. I would have put Jalen Wiggins in like a mock recruiting class up until the other day where he announced he was shutting it down. So that kind of sucks. But I'm not gonna judge Ernie's recruiting abilities just based on that. Yeah, I think Shannon is probably going to stick around no matter what. But I wouldn't be surprised if they make some kind of move to where he's not like the primary linebacker recruiter. Um, you know, it's weird too because I realized like Randy Shannon is this like he runs point for South Florida recruiting, and South Florida recruiting for FSU has not been good. He also ran point on Armando Blunt last year, which I never realized either. And we all know how that went. Like, staff, it was reported that Armando Blunt wouldn't even open the door when the staff tried to do an in-home visit. So, like, you know, I definitely, there's an issue there. There's an issue there. It seems like recruitments that Randy's involved in never go our way. And matter of fact, it eventually leads to us getting played, it seems. So, again, I'm not trying to get on here and do like the doom and gloom thing like yesterday, but it's a good point. Like something's got to be done, and I don't think that's necessarily him getting fired. I think Randy is still an asset to the staff, to the team. Sims Flip Wallace, yeah, there's a lot of different approaches they could take to Flip Wallace. If it's ever going to be possible, but I think it will be. I don't know about likely, but possible. It's just kind of that's going to be a tricky one to kind of maneuver going forward. Certain recruit linebackers. I wish. Like Daryl Johnson, that was another one on the board early on that Florida State looked like they were in a good spot for. Fringe 5-star kid. But he was ranked like listed as a linebacker, but he actually projects as like a safety. So those kind of scenarios because like linebacker and safeties kind of like always have like a little bit of ambiguity to them. So like yeah, I wish Surtain could recruit. I wish Surtain could recruit like everywhere pretty much. Because I do think Surtain is probably one of our best recruiters. Him and Alex Atkins. So yeah, I wish. Let me ask you guys a favor. If you're still watching, we appreciate it for one. But if you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. Like I said, this is one of my first lives, and it's definitely gonna be a little bit rough, and so I apologize. I'm hoping to get a better mic and better audio and things like that going here soon, but gotta take what we got right now. So, but yeah, definitely be like I said. Just for if anybody's kind of like just getting in here, Florida State's expecting a commitment tomorrow. Force offensive lineman Peyton Joseph, and definitely make sure like when it happens, if it happens, when it happens, to go rub that in a Gator fan's face for sure, because he was a former UF commit. Everything's okay. Cool, nice. I'm using like a headset mic, and I wasn't sure how great it was. Yeah, like I said, we're 15 recruits. I would don't get worried like that. I mean, they already have 9, and Al there listed at least 3 more, potentially coming up. Yeah, Hollis Davidson's tomorrow. I didn't realize. I do think that one is probably Auburn. I think Florida State. Yeah, I heard conflicting information there about whether Florida State would take both of them. I thought initially yes, that they would take both, and I think Hollis Davidson would have been a null. But I think that you saw the Auburn crystal ball come in after Chase Lofton committed. I think that's not necessarily coincidence. Um, could be wrong. Could be wrong. I think, like I said, I think Florida State would greenlight both of them. Just I don't know how much they're pushing for him after getting Lofton. And again, I'll give him credit for that. Like that was a kid that you pulled out of Nebraska. That's not an easy. It's not an easy pull. And I think that dude runs routes like a receiver, and at his size, that's pretty crazy. So, you know, got like almost kind of like dare I make the comparison like a Brock Bowers? I'm not saying he's Brock Bowers, but I'm just saying a big tight end that can run routes like a receiver. That's an asset, and especially for the Mike Norvell kind of offense, like I think that's a really really good pickup. Yeah, I'm leaning Auburn for Davidson, but I haven't heard either way on that. Not that I necessarily would, but reading tea leaves just makes it look like Auburn right now. That's also where he's formerly committed. So when he decommitted from Auburn, I was like, okay, like Florida State for sure. But I think they ended up getting, and luckily to that point, I think Lofton was the priority out of the two. I do think Lofton's better. So yeah, I'm not too upset if that one actually does go to Auburn. But yeah, William, I think we definitely get more than 15 recruits in the class. Like I wouldn't worry about that. Um, you know, I still think it's going to be a top 10 class. Maybe not quite as high as I wanted. I was still hoping for like top 6 or 7. But if we fall in that 8-9 range, I'm not too upset there. Could have been better. It should have been better. It should be better. Florida State should be recruiting at a top 5 level always, especially when you just win 13 games and things like that. But I think some of the way the staff does things, it just doesn't. The staff isn't going to play that whole prima donna, uh, you know, crazy game and flashiness, and I don't think they should. To be fair, but I just think sometimes that leaves you recruiting differently and makes it a little bit more frustrating to follow. Lawson and Thomas would be yeah. Landon Thomas is one of those. I'm super excited about him. Like he definitely needed to bulk up some, and I think he has. But yeah, I think Landon Thomas will be a really really good player, and especially like you said with Lofton eventually too. I think that's yeah. What I want to see from Chase Lofton is I want to see him throw. What was it? I want to see him throw Luke Kromenhoek a touchdown, just like we saw with Jordan Travis a couple years back against Syracuse. That's what I want to see. But yeah, I think Florida State still hits. It still hits in the top 10, and I think they will end up somewhere around 20 to 25 commitments. And so, like I said, still signed a very good class. The commitments they do got, like the commitments they are still recruiting at a very high level. Obviously, 5-star Solomon Thomas, fringe 5-star, high 4-star Javon Hilson, the number 1 edge in the country. Kevin Wynn's a top 60 defensive lineman. Zay Thomas, a top 200 safety. Myron Charles, a top 200 defensive lineman. C.J. Wiley, I think C.J. Wiley actually just got a pretty good bump. On 3, C.J. Wiley's like a top 60 player as well. So I definitely think on three is a little bit low on him. Tramel Jones obviously locking it down was huge. And again, like I think that I think Tramel Jones locking it down is going to go a good way of helping us with Vernell Brown later. Chase Lofton and then Ethan Pritchard. So that's one thing I want to encourage people still to remember is Florida State, while they missed on 0 for 3 on linebackers in the last couple of days, they do still have Ethan Pritchard in the fold. 6'2", 205 pounds, 210 pounds. I think I think he's still going to be pretty good, and I think he's pretty locked in. So yeah, they're recruiting at still a very high level. Like I said, when's the last time we got a 5-star offensive lineman, and we're shaping up to get 2, and really in a decent spot for multiple 5-star offensive linemen right now. I think they at least get Solomon Thomas and Josh Petty, and at that point, you really can't be unhappy about that. Still got another 5-star edge out there you can make a move on. Still got some 5-star receivers you can make a move on. So yeah, I wouldn't panic just because of linebacker. I know I definitely don't think that's quite fair. Linebacker is going to be what it is, unfortunately. And again, they could still, that's recency bias is gonna say that we shouldn't get positive or optimistic about linebackers, and I definitely wouldn't suggest holding your breath. But I think they could still make a really good move in there. Again, we're hearing a lot of smoke around T.J. Alford. It was T.J. Alford's he's a high 4-star offensive lineman or offensive lineman. Goodness, a top 4 the 4-star linebacker. Goodness, I can't talk. Trying to pull him up now. Yeah, I mean the composite rankings have him as a top 50 player. From the state of Florida, again, he's from Vero Beach. I think Florida State could definitely still get back in that one. Like I said, we're hearing communications are picking up, around the staff and him. So I wouldn't sail the whole recruiting class just because linebacker is not going to be quite what we thought it was. And again, that's still a pretty early call to try to make here in July too. So again, things could shake out in a way that we have no clue. Next season. Yeah. Jaden Parrish was, honestly, I kind of thought he would end up being a 4-star, but maybe he would have if he went to an SEC program. But I think that kid's gonna be good. Omar Graham, it's I don't know. you look at that lineup. Graham, Nicholson, Cryer, Murphy. You definitely want to hear. You definitely want some more talent there. But yeah, I think that's serviceable. To be fair, we don't know what Sean Murphy is yet. Sean Murphy could be very good. He could be very bad. He was a 4-star. I want to say like a top 150 kid out of high school. Bama wanted him for a reason, and I think that's going to be, hopefully that means there's something there. Yeah. Hopefully that means there's something there that the staff can kind of take on. And like I said, to Randy's credit, development like crazy. So, if he could take a guy that was highly recruited, by the likes of Alabama and everybody else, there's something there. So hopefully Randy, if he's not going to recruit, a top 100 linebacker himself, hopefully he can just take one through the portal and develop him. Still get multiple years out of him too. So if there can be developments made there, I think that's the thing. Right now, that lineup of Graham, Nicholson, Cryer, Murphy, Parrish, Pritchard, etc. Right now, that doesn't get me too excited. But again, if they could pull some development, like they have, like I said, they've done it before. If they could develop some of those guys, like Blaine Nicholson could be very, very good. I think Cryer is also going to take a decent step. I think Murphy has a lot to offer there. I think Jaden Parrish has a lot to offer there. So just a matter that's in a way that's a good thing, but it's what makes it all the more frustrating. Like when we miss on a Tavion Wallace or Gavin Nix or whatever, because like you could have applied that same kind of development to a 4-star, a 5-star linebacker, but like I said, it is what it is. And every staff has holes, guys. Like again, Georgia can't recruit elite receivers to save their life. They just Florida State just stuffed them in a locker for C.J. Wiley. Texas seems to be fighting for their life trying to recruit a defensive lineman. So, they made all the push they could for Javion Hilson. Didn't work. They made all the push they could for Myron Charles. Even like I said, Texas Mob put in a crystal ball prediction for Texas to get Myron Charles, and Florida State knocked that away. So every staff has holes, guys. And linebacker is just one of them for us. But really, Texas defensive line. But really, you look at every other position. Like I said, 2 5-stars on the offensive line. We're recruiting edges pretty well right now. We're still not done there. Defensive line. And you got 2 top 150-ish kids. Kevin Wynn, I think, is like I said, top 60. So you're recruiting defensive line pretty good. Odell is at least waking up the cycle. Your recruiting board, your receiver board, is pretty big. Got to close there, so you can't just have a class of C.J. Wiley. But I think, like I said, I think you definitely get Dalen McCutcheon as of right now. It seems that way. I think they're way more involved in it for Khalid Lockett. So receivers there, defensive line's there, offensive line is definitely there. You got your quarterback. You got a tight end out of Nebraska, big 6'6" tight end. You just got a 4-star safety. You're not done at safety either. I think you probably go get LaDarian Clardy. And I think Jabari Antoine is another one I can see at like DB. So just like every other position is. My point is every other position is doing well right now. Like I said, I'm not gonna say this whole recruiting class is gonna be terrible just because of linebacker, whiffing on linebackers. It's frustrating though. I'll give you that. I'll give you that one. But all right, guys. I think unless you guys got any more questions or anything like that, I'm gonna jump off here. I pretty much covered a lot of what I wanted to cover. We've been on here for pushing 2 hours now, so not too shabby. Not too shabby. Definitely gonna be doing more of these. Definitely, stay tuned. Let me know if you guys want to see more. Definitely, it's fun to get on here and kind of talk with some of you guys in the comments. So I'll definitely be trying to do this more regardless. But like I said, we should be expecting good news tomorrow. I'll definitely do a video on that. But I think again, just to cap it all off, guys, like linebacker is just going to be what it is. Hopefully they can find a way to still turn it around, pull off some flips, do what they got to do there. But if not, it is what it is. But I still think it's going to be a very good recruiting class. I think it's going to be a top 10 class, best one under Mike Norvell so far. And I think that it's frustrating, but we're still in good shape. I still I believe in the team. I believe in Mike. I believe in pretty much everybody on this staff, pretty much. But so stay tuned. There's just a real couple of days, but don't let that distract you from the 10 days leading up to that. That Florida State was just on fire. I think we're gonna have, like I said, one tomorrow, one on the 13th, and then into August. I think there's gonna be more and more that start to come out. And a lot of their targets don't even have commitment dates set yet, right? So some of these kids could still pop at any time, like Byron Lewis or Vernell Brown. I think doesn't have a commitment date, so things could still pop, and we could still get some surprises here and there. So I think recruiting is still fine, guys. Just like I said, don't let the last couple of days of linebackers distract you from the fact that Florida State is still red hot on the recruiting trail right now. Hollis. I think Auburn right now for Hollis, just after we got the Chase Lofton pickup. But never say never. But I think they're good with Chase Lofton for right now. Hollis probably just wants to go back to Auburn where he was, rather than coming to be tight end 2 and maybe 3 here. Yesterday did suck. I will say that. But like I said, try not to let it distract you. Try not to let it, try not to let it bother you too much because those three battles against Georgia, like Kevin Wynn, C.J. Wiley, those are big wins. They and none of those were planned, right? Like you didn't plan to get C.J. Wiley, you didn't plan like you wanted Kevin Wynn, and you thought you were in a good spot for him. You thought you maybe even led for him, but you didn't know that was happening when it did. Myron Charles, you didn't know. So like, you know, yeah, surprises are a lot nicer. Definitely, there's been some surprises, both good and bad now. But again, don't let. There's been a lot more good than bad in the last 2 weeks. So just take that for what it's worth. Yeah, I need some good news. And hey, it's coming tomorrow. It's coming tomorrow. Peyton Joseph, 4-star offensive lineman. We got him from Florida. I say he used to be committed to Florida, and I think it's pretty much been a silent commit to the staff for a while now. So he's announcing tomorrow. More fireworks on 4th of July, and I think that'll be what we need to kind of get back on the good news again. And yeah, just need some good news. And like I said, I think we get it tomorrow. So yeah, just wash the taste out of your mouth about yesterday, and just look ahead. Luckily, at this point now, you don't have to worry about him. I guess I'll give you a half silver lining. You don't got to worry about anybody else flipping Tavion Wallace from you. Now you just get to work on a flip. If it doesn't happen, then fine. But now, if anything does come out of that camp, it was good news and it was a shocker. So take that for what it's worth. And like I said, more good news tomorrow and throughout the next month or two. And I think we're still in very, very good shape. Yeah, have a good 4th of July, guys. And like I said, stay tuned for that commitment tomorrow, hopefully. And the video, I'll be doing the video about that. Good news again, like you said. But yeah, have a good 4th of July, guys. And hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Go Noles. We'll see you guys on the next one.